What's up, everybody? Ben Razza here for Odd Chopper. It is Saturday, October 8th, and that means it's a day of college football. There's a ton of games on the board, and you know the drill. I have dug through many of them, found the lines, scanned the board, and I've identified my favorite play of the day. It's a little egregious, I'm not going to lie, but you know what? On a day like this, there's a lot of value out there, and we want to share what we've got going on here at Odd Chopper. If you're hopping in for the first time, checking us out, welcome to Odd Chopper. This is what we do, all things betting, from NFL to college football to the NBA, playoff baseball. If you want bets, you want analysis, we got a great team here. So if you want to support us, hit the like button and join this channel. We want you as part of the team. Yesterday, I was on Nebraska, who's always a roller coaster, a tale of two halves. Shut out in the first half, and they shut out Rutgers in the second half. 114-13. We lost. -2.5, -3, wherever you got that spread, unless you took the money line. I know a lot of people that did. They did not cover that, but I will say, what a great live betting opportunity. And if you're in our premium Discord, you saw just that. I actually have it on the screen. Something I don't talk about a lot, but I wanted to share with you guys. If you're looking for more, if you're looking for live betting and things like that, hop in our premium Discord. You can get your first week 100% free. Just come in and check it out. You see it there. Promo code BR, my initials, Insider. Link in the description. Go down and check that out. When you hop in, say hi, stop in, say what's up. It's a great opportunity, and that was one last night in Nebraska. The live bet was there, but let's get to the board, and then I'm also going to talk about DraftKings Sportsbook and what we got going on. Of all these games, I went to Air Force and Utah State, weren't. But at the same time, this is one of my favorite values on the board. I honestly think this might be the best bet of the day, and that's why it's on this video. Let's get into it. We've got the Air Force Falcons hitting the road to take on Utah State, who's just terrible. I'm actually going to start with Utah State. They are 1-4 on the year. They beat UConn. Then they lost 55-0 to Alabama. That's no shame. They lost to Weber State 35-7. That is not good. Weber State's a good team, but they're an FCS team. They lost to UNLV by 10, and then their last game, they lost by 12 to BYU. That's actually a pretty good showing for them. It's pretty simple. They're a struggling team right now. They're not doing a lot offensively, and defensively, they've got some serious issues. One being that they cannot stop the run. If you know anything about Air Force football, that's an alarm bell statement. Utah State is 118th in the country in rushing yards allowed per attempt at 5.3. That is going to be a problem. If you cannot stop the run, this would be the last team in the country that you would want to face, and that is because Air Force is number one in the entire country in rush percentage. They run the ball 87% of the time. They average 328 rushing yards per game against FBS opponents, 50 yards higher than anyone else in the country. This is a triple option attack that you do not want to see. It's difficult. They're tossing the ball all over the place. They have capable guys under center that throw occasionally, and when they do, it's like a 70-yard touchdown. This is a dynamic offense. Now, Air Force is 4-1 on the year. Opened up, they crushed Northern Iowa. They crushed Colorado. They went to Wyoming. On one of these videos, I was on them in that spot, and they lost the game as big-time favorites. A terrible loss for Air Force. Laramie's a tough place to play, but really no excuse there. But they've rebounded. They beat Nevada by 28, and then they survived Navy last week by 3 points in a low-scoring affair. But it's a triple option school. That's what happens when the academies play. You kind of throw everything out the window. I don't really care about that. The thing about Air Force that's always concerning is they play so slow. But in a game like this, we're not asking them to cover 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 10.5. They'll have ample time to do that, and this is one of the easiest defenses that they have seen. Take advantage. This is a team that I was so high on coming into the season. I really like Air Force in this spot. But in addition to that, you see it on the screen. I changed the banner. Bet 5 to win 200 in free bets if your team wins. What does that mean? If you haven't played on DraftKings, if you're a new user, when you sign up for the Discord, you're also going to see another link in the pinned comments and in the description to sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook. And when you do that, if you deposit $5, $10, whatever you want, bet it on a money line. And if that team wins, they give you $200 in free bets. So what I would suggest, just take the layup. Take like a crazy money line that has no chance of losing. Alabama, Georgia. Georgia literally, it would take probably a meteor or something for them to lose today. If you do that, you're going to get $200 in free bets. Then you can tap that money for NFL tomorrow. A great opportunity to take advantage over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Just another way to add money to the bankroll. But I'm hoping Air Force is going to add some money to the bankroll as well. And that is where I'm going to be putting my money, minus 10.5.
Yeah, it's wild, like with just the time between titles, like when it really gets down to it. Like I was thinking about that in regards to the New York Rangers, because it's like, 94, 95 was like right in the wheelhouse of when I was a new hockey fan and I was a new Rangers fan and everything, and like hit the cup like fairly early on in Rangers fanhood after all those people have been waiting since 1940, 56 years, 54 years, whatever it was. And now, I mean, since then we're looking at 27 years at this point since that cup. Yeah. And it's like all of a sudden you're in the middle of another drought, and it's just like it goes by in a blink. So yeah, Phillies 150 years, 2 rings.
Catch it up on you.
Yeah, that's crazy. And my buddy who's a Phillies fan, my buddy Charlie, was talking about that yesterday. The last time they played the Cards, and all 3 of Yachty, Pujols, and Waino were on that Cards team. They're still there. Isn't that bonkers? Oh, we're actually going to do this show? What's happening, Stokastic baseball fans? Of course, we're actually going to do this show. That's why we got up earlier. That's why we stayed up all night, in my case, and I'm guessing probably Gun's case as well. I got up late afternoon yesterday, and I just did the long haul overnight. Didn't want to have to set the alarm, worry about it, because that didn't work out so well yesterday for your old friend here when he had to get up and set lineups. Had some clunkers in there, had some dead lineups. Gun skipped the whole slate yesterday, took the day off, slept in. Did you sleep last night, Gun, or are you on the overnight shift as well here?
Man, I don't even know how to explain what my sleep life is like right now. I guess I got up at like 4, but I took a nap. I don't know. It's bad.
A little nap in there overnighter, right? Somewhere. All right. I might have dozed. I might have blinked hard a couple times during I was watching the latest episode of the Lord of the Rings series. It was a little warm in here. Cat jumped up and was cuddling for a little while. I might have passed out for a couple minutes there, but we're plowing through anyway. We're going to go at least through lock, get my lineups in today for this slate. So we've got 4 games to talk about. It's an interesting start. We're brought to you by Odd Shopper today. Kind of a casual, slow show. We got 4 games to talk about. We can meander through all this, really pick them apart like we don't usually get a lot of time to do. And it's an Odd Shopper day, so we can breeze through our little sponsorship plugs and just talk baseball the whole way down. So let's start by just talking on, forgot. Everybody hit the like, the subscribe, all those things for us. We'll mention what's free over at the site as soon as I pull the run sheet back up. But Gun, what are just some impressions, any general impressions you could take away from the 4 games that we saw yesterday as to maybe how these teams are going to approach things, or now that some of these teams are in 1-0 holes, any considerations about what they might do differently in today's games as we're going into this?
In game 1, you're throwing the best you got out there. And then from what I understood, there was a plan for the Mets, if Max had won, to use Bassett today, and then DeGrom game 3, and if vice versa, DeGrom here. So there's some teams that have if this then that plan set up like it's a SAT test to try and not overmanage this series, but also kind of leave yourself a shot for the division series. Generally, yeah.
If you're thinking like in terms of the Mets, had they won that game, you come back with Bassett, good pitcher, good shot at game 2. Have DeGrom in your pocket for game 3 if you need him, or he starts the next series. So you can see the logic behind it. But now that Max didn't exactly come through yesterday, you think Max is hurt? You think Max just had a clunker and didn't piece it together early and didn't have enough time? What do you think?
I think seeing his last couple of outings, he's either hurt, father time's in the mix, or both. I would lean towards the hurt side because that's the struggle bus against Oakland. He had 11% swing and strike rate. Atlanta's Atlanta, right? When that happened, it was like, it's Atlanta.
Yeah,
they're really
forgive
good.
That one. Yeah.
But yeah, they keep talking about this oblique. It's just it's a shame for Mets fans and Cohen, because you paid Max for this series,
the one spot you wanted him.
And he's not there for you. And hopefully DeGrom isn't as hurt. He's looked a whole lot better lately. But yeah. It's a shame. And it's just wild to see Max get booed off the field in a playoff series at home, man.
Oh, Mets fans. Gotta love them. Chris Christie, politics aside, whatever you think of the guy, Chris Christie was on Bill Maher last night and had a pretty good line about he just wanted to teach his kids to learn disappointment early on in life, so he made them all Mets fans. Thought that was an amusing line from the ex-governor of New Jersey, politics aside. Before we get a bunch of comments in chat about whether Chris Christie's good or not, let's take a quick look at the free stuff. Hit the like, the subscribe, all those things. Free stuff over at the site today. MLB ownership projections, which are pretty relevant for a 4-game slate for MLB. And we've also got NFL Week 5 top stacks. That's a pretty badass tool to have for free on the site. That tells you everything that you need to know about a slate. So go check that out for NFL tomorrow. I'm not sure if that's going to be open tomorrow as well, but grab that now. Not a ton is going to change tomorrow in terms of who the top stacks are. You look at that thing, it's going to give you the quarterback ownership on that tool. So you're going to know how popular those stacks are. You're going to know how likely they are. That thing being free is killer. So jump over there over at Stokastic, guys. Check it out. Hit the like button for that tool being free. Gun, let's get into, I guess, a little game by game action here. We can talk through this later. Did you have any other, I kind of cut you off with the DeGrom conversation. Did you have any other overarching thoughts about, just general baseball stuff and approach to these things like I had originally asked?
No, but usually historically, like we expect the playoffs to be a much lower scoring brand of baseball. And pitchers usually have quick hooks if they're in any kind of jam. Yesterday, we saw a couple of really strong outings. Shane Bieber, Luis Castillo, Darvish. I mean, you rarely see 7 innings out of starting pitchers in the playoffs, it feels like, and 3 teams at least got that from their starters. So I don't think that's going to be the norm, at least going forward. Maybe today is a little bit looser as the sense of urgency for these teams down 0-1 happens. And then when you get to the ALDS, there's going to be games or a series where only 1 or 2 pitchers end up going 5 or 6 innings. So be ready for that. Maybe today we'll get a bigger dose of it.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a, nice list of premium pitchers, ace caliber pitchers, 1s or 2s on this team. But I agree. We did see, I think it was 4 starters went 7 innings last night, which is just totally wild. And they were making the point on the MLB network or on one of the shows, just talking about like last year in the playoffs, everybody was saying, oh man, these guys are going 4 innings, yanking them, going to the bullpens, et cetera, et cetera. And, now we get this. Is it a change? And they were leaning yes. And I still lean no. I'm with you. I think these teams are just, the way that a modern baseball team is built, the way that the math works for these clubs and everything, it's just not speaking to doing that. But if you have a Robbie Ray, if you have an Aaron Nola, if you have a Jake DeGrom and he's rolling, maybe you do see the 6th, 7th inning out of him on especially for a must-win spot like the Mets with DeGrom. So maybe we do get it in certain spots and not others. So it'll be interesting to pick apart. Let's dive in game 1. We've got the lineups for the early game. It's the Tampa Bay Rays with Tyler Glasnow on the mound, taking on the Guardians with Tristan McKenzie. When I put the run sheet together, this one was dead even in terms of implied run totals. Both teams at 3.0 with 6.5, I think it was on the overall game total. 6 flat on the overall game total. So this is a spot where we are not expecting a lot of run creation. We saw a good pitching matchup yesterday. I think we're going to see another good one, at least to start. But what are you thinking in terms of Tyler Glasnow and his pitch count? We've only seen him throw 6 2/3 this season. He pitched, I think, in the 50s and the 60s in those starts. So what do you think we get out of Glasnow here?
Yeah, I think this would be Exhibit A on, especially for the Rays that invented the opener, right? For a guy that gets quick hooked when he's in a jam. Thing is, Glasnow's really doggone good. So 3 to 5 innings is probably the expectation for me. 75 pitches, I think, would be a healthy estimate if he's rolling. And then Kevin Cash will probably call in the bullpen. And Glasnow, I don't think he's playable at all on FanDuel, but that 5,600 on DraftKings, he is capable to almost getting every out being a strikeout. 38.5% K rate so far in the limited 6.2 innings that we had this year. But that's not that far from his normal sample size K rate of the last 2 years, 36, 38%. So at 5,600, I think on DraftKings, you can consider him in your SP2 spot. It's not really a strikeout matchup, but he's a strikeout pitcher. So I'll definitely be leaning into him on DK. Really good pitching weather. It's like 50 degrees out there in Cleveland. So colder weather is going to favor lower scoring game. So no on FanDuel I just can't consider it, but on DraftKings at 5,600, I'll get to a little Glasnow.
Yeah, FanDuel not doing us any favors with that price. If he was in like even the 7s maybe on this slate, like if you could get him at that kind of a price and in that kind of a discount from these other guys, then that might have a little bit of appeal. But I'm totally with you. I think 80 is the absolute cap. I think more realistic 70 to 75 is probably what we'll see, and then just situational depending for those last 10 pitches. But I think they'd probably target 70 pitches at 5,600. 70 pitches, you can get to approaching 5 innings and a good handful of strikeouts out of this guy against even a good lineup like Cleveland's in terms of not striking out. So yeah, I'm with you. A lot of utility at that price on DK, and the ownership isn't overwhelming for him to be at that much of a discount from all the other pitchers, except for like, I guess, a Miles McCollum. That seems like it's at least efficient ownership at 21.3, maybe a little bit low, arguably, just for having him and his strikeout upside at that price. What do you think of McKenzie on the other side? 8,700, fair mid-range price on DK, pulling similar ownership at 23%, 99 on FanDuel, around 11% owned. We know this is a good, effective Rays lineup, but he's a good pitcher. What are you doing with McKenzie here?
Yeah, and one of McKenzie's usual bugaboos is the home run ball, and the 50-degree weather here, wind's kind of neutral. He might save some of those homers that die at the warning track. So another really good strikeout pitcher, not quite the 38%, but 25%. That dog will hunt, a 3.54 expected ERA. I think the price on FanDuel is a little bit aggressive, but in the interest of game theory, when you are looking at top end pitchers and you see names like Jacob deGrom, Aaron Nola, I think those guys, even Blake Snell, maybe that gives Tristan McKenzie a little bit more sticker shock, and people will tend to go there less. So we're getting him on DK at 23% projected ownership. That's 3% less than the projected chance of him being a top 2 pitcher. So already a little bit of whole inefficient ownership there. And then I imagine if we click over to FanDuel, Tristan McKenzie, a little bit of positive leverage there to be had. So certainly a good contrarian pitcher to go to on this slate, as there's a 36% owned pitcher and a 20% owned pitcher ahead of him. He's got 1 in 4 strikeout stuff, and his team has a decent shot, a 50-50 shot at winning him this game for FanDuel's sake. So I like the thought of McKenzie quite a bit.
Yeah, and he ranks just below Kevin Gausman, who's also positively leveraged. But when we're talking about the probability factor, 13.4% probability for Gausman to be the top pitcher, 13.1 for Tristan McKenzie. So we're not really talking about them being different at all. I mean, those are essentially the same number if we're really looking at it. 4.9% leverage for Gausman, 1.3 for McKenzie. But what I like about McKenzie is we're getting a $900 discount from Gausman. So same across the board with those other categories. I'll take that price saving. I think that's going to make me very happy. And hopefully seeing the 9,900 price tag on him, just people not so familiar, comfortable, other big names available, maybe he comes in a little under. So I do like that spot. It's not that I love attacking the Rays necessarily, but it is a Rays lineup that we've talked about it before. When you look up and down, at least on the name recognition factor, I know that this is a good baseball team. I know they come together well. There's a lot of good WRC plus. There's a lot of good hit tool and run creation. There's not a lot of scary hitters in this lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a lineup that I can throw a pitcher that I'm not wholly comfortable at and kind of think that maybe he gets there. So I do agree. I think Tristan McKenzie's got upside. What are you doing about the Rays on the other side now? Is this a stack we want to dabble with? Actually, before we get into that, let's talk lineup construction for these slates. Since we've only got 4 games, I'm sure people are wondering, do you do anything as far as on a 4-game slate with low run expectation as well? Do you do anything with allowing hitters versus pitchers on a slate like this? Or do you do anything funky or different with your lineup construction?
Yeah, I definitely think it's healthy to approach these slates way different than a typical regular season slate, because a regular season slate, more than half the teams are really not playoff teams, and the pitchers that they're throwing, especially in the last month, these are the best of the best of the best, sir. And you're not likely to get those football score games that really pay off a 5-man onslaught. So, and this isn't to tell everyone to change their whole process, but it is certainly worth exploring the thought of reverse engineering a couple of slates in the playoffs, especially a slate like this where we don't have a single team with a 4 implied run total, much less the 5, which we seek in regular season. So, maybe don't full sell out for the 5-man onslaughts. And yeah, I think unlocking 1 or 2 bats against your pitcher, not forcing that, but allowing your optimizer that flexibility is certainly a good way to get a little bit more unique. And yeah, I think I could see myself with a lot of 3-man stacks today versus selling out for the full-on 5-man, because there's not really one pitcher on this slate that has a lot of implosion potential. And then at the same token, it's a 4-game slate. So guys like me and you probably just stack every team anyway. So we might have to like teeter totter between 20-man or 20 entry game theory and full 150 game theory.
Yeah, for sure. On a full 150 spread, we're going to have a lot of different pieces. And that's where I do think it's going to be important, with 4 games, only a few different options. I'm going to be focusing on some uncomfortable hitters from bottom of the lineups. You guys have heard me talk about that all season long, but I think it becomes even more important and even more paramount. And we saw a guy like Jose Siri from the bottom of the Rays lineup go deep yesterday. And that becomes important on a slate with just a limited amount of potential outcomes and a limited amount of spots, that each guy gets up 5 times across 8 teams. We're not talking about a tremendous amount of possibilities or opportunities. So you got to capitalize on it. And I think eliminating certain roster constructions just by default, because that's what we always do, might take some things off the table that we might want to have. And if we're thinking in terms of guys like Tyler Glasnow coming out of a game early, maybe it makes some sense to have some guardians against that pitching spot, because now even if they go off against the bullpen, you don't worry about the negative part of that correlation. So I do think it's an important approach. I'm going to be allowing probably 1, maybe 2 to come in, but not forcing it, like you said. So with these things in mind, what are we doing with the Tampa Bay Rays going up against McKenzie here? We get to bats from that side?
I mean, this seems like the least likely game to turn into a shootout. So, yeah, I don't see myself full 5-man stacking here. I like that especially Indians or Guardians against Tyler Glasnow, because Glasnow could be so short for this game. And then you get a guy like Jose Ramirez. Like if I had a Glasnow Jose Ramirez lineup, I'm not going to lose any sleep today. So I think especially in that situation, that makes a lot of sense. And then the stolen bases aren't negatively impacting your pitcher instantly anyway. So I don't, but if I had a like 20-man, we'll say 20 entries, I don't think I get to this game as far as a stack, but I would go 2 or 3-man maybe on the Guardians here featuring Jose Ramirez.
Okay. And then if we're building out, full slates of lineups, I do like that some of these guys through both lineups are coming in single digit territory. On the Rays side of things, you do kind of have to drop down toward the bottom of the lineup with some of these hitters, and we'll see where Isaac Paredes comes in. He wasn't in the first cut of ownership, but he's in the lineup. Decent power bat there. He's not a hit tool specialist by any means at 205, 304, 435, but he did hit 20 balls out of the yard this year, came up with a 230 ISO and 381 plate appearances. So I think he's somewhat interesting. There are guys like that I can get to from the Rays lineup if I'm building out a full set of lineups. But I agree, in 20, I probably don't need to tangle with them too much. The Guardians is the preferable side of it, and they seem to be drawing less ownership. Josh Naylor, Oscar Gonzalez, Will Brennan, Austin Hedges, Miles Straw, all in the low single digits. And then even the Ahmed Rosario, Jose Ramirez, 11.6, 14%, Andres Jimenez, 12% on DK. that's nothing to really get all that concerned about. So I think that's an interesting spot for tackling some Guardians lineups and putting together some, 3-mans, 4-mans, 5-mans, and rolling with it depending on how you're building lineups today. Anything else from this game, or should I see if there's any business I haven't taken care of yet?
Yeah, I think we pretty well covered.
Cool. All right. That's 1 down, 3 to go. Let's talk promo codes. The promo code is MLB Live because this is MLB Live before lock. I might have said strategy show. I might not have named the show up at the top. I'm pretty bad at actually welcoming people to the show. Welcome to the show, everybody. 20 some odd minutes in. Promo code's MLB Live. What you need to do is go over to stokastic.com, and that's going to get you access to a 50% discount on the first week of a weekly subscription if you're a new subscriber. That applies to the Platinum plan. The Platinum plan is the one that includes NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL. Basically, every single sport that we cover at the site for DFS is included in the Platinum plan. And it includes every single tool for every single sport, whether it's the top stacks for NFL, whether it's the boom bust tool for basketball, the top pitchers for baseball, top stacks for hockey, anything you want. All included on the Platinum plan. It is the primo plan. 50% off your first week of that on a weekly if you're a new subscriber with promo code MLB Live. It also works for any of the other weeklies. If you're interested in just an MLB for the rest of the playoffs, you can jump on MLB. When NBA starts up, you can jump on that. MLB Live's the promo code. Fantasy Cruncher not included. We'll talk Odd Shopper a little bit later. We'll talk Odd Shopper Insider a little bit after that. But let's jump over to another interesting baseball game here. We've got the Mariners with Robbie Ray on the mound. Robbie Ray coming in at a $7,100 price on DK. Is that accurate? That is. That seems cheap and not drawing all that much attention in terms of ownership. 97 on FanDuel, not drawing any attention in terms of ownership. Kevin Gausman on the other side. Gausman cheaper, 6,800, 27% owned, 10.8 on FanDuel, under 10% owned. So what do we think of these pitchers in an interesting matchup where they kind of are they were interchanged before this season started? Gausman came in and basically replaced Robbie Ray in Toronto. Robbie Ray went out to Seattle and had a pretty strong season. Now he's leading this team into Toronto, looking to knock them out of the playoffs. What are we doing with Robbie Ray here at fairly low ownership and a good price?
I mean, ownership aside, I'm more likely to believe in the Blue Jays righty heavy offense getting into Robbie Ray. But then we play math and analytics. Robbie Ray severely underpriced and based on our model, severely underowned. So ultimately I will be playing both sides, but Robbie Ray might be one of the best positive leverage spots. I think he's literally the best positive leverage spot on DraftKings for a pitcher, 12% positive leverage, meaning almost a 19% chance of being a top 2 pitcher with just 7% ownership. So it's one of the more menacing matchups to pitch against, but being contrarian on these smaller slates certainly can pay off. And the Blue Jays, as we saw yesterday, this offense can ghost. So I'm willing to take advantage of some of that positive leverage. And that's so much positive leverage that I don't have to take all of it. I can go 1.5 and feel like I'm still making the right play.
Yeah. And he's top of the board on FanDuel as well in terms of leverage. And I totally agree. I think it's an interesting spot. It has the possibility of getting completely blown up. Well, I've talked about Robbie Ray a ton of times this season in terms of being a pitcher that I begrudgingly go to and don't fully trust because he tends to give up power. He's 4.27% home run rate last year, 4.13 this year, 42.9% hard hit with a 9.8% barrel last year, 39.1 with a 7.9 this year. So even in his good years, he's still prone to giving up power. He puts a few too many guys on base. So when he gives up power, sometimes there's big knocks that, put some crooked numbers on the board. But he's cheap. He's still got a 27% strikeout rate this year and a 32% strikeout rate last year. I want to be invested in that when he's 1.3% owned on the FanDuel slate, 7% owned on DK. I just think the leverage numbers and for tournaments, it's the right move to make. If it blows up, it blows up, but I want to be there when it doesn't. What about Gausman on the other side, who is getting more attention on the DK slate? 6,800 for 300 less. Is there that big a difference between these spots and these pitchers? What am I missing?
I wouldn't have priced either one of these pitchers where they're at right here. But
yeah,
I guess
I agree. Both prices are wrong, but I just mean in terms of Gausman to Robbie Ray, 6,800 to 71 with all the ownership flocking to Gausman. I can't imagine the 300 savings is that important. Do people just think that Gausman is that much better, or the matchup is that much better? What is it that's drawing all that?
I think it's the matchup. The Blue Jays are just menacing top to bottom, it feels like. And
which makes sense too, because they're drawing a ton of ownership on their bats. So that probably is what it is.
And to double down on our hitters against pitchers policy here, Blue Jays against Robbie Ray certainly could make my crunch today. But yeah, I think Gausman underpriced, so is Robbie Ray, and the matchups. Hey, every matchup in the playoffs not going to be a good matchup. But I think the Mariners matchup probably gives us a little bit more hope in terms of strikeouts, depending on what the confirmed lineup is. J-Rod, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Mitch Haniger, Jared Kelenic. We're talking about an aggregate of like 28% K rate against righties combined. So matchup considered, I think Kevin Gausman has the easier path to success. But when we crunch those ownership numbers, Gausman is not a secret, and he's 4 times the ownership of Robbie Ray here. So we're just trying to zig where the field is zagging. This could be one of those spots. And I wonder even if putting both of those pitchers in the lineup on DraftKings might be a unique way to grab some chalk and then kind of go against it at the same time.
Sure.
But yeah, good spot. I mean, good spot theoretically for Gausman as well. You mentioned his 28% K rate, 15% swing and strike rate. He can go out there and get some strikeouts, and this is what they got him for. Hopefully he doesn't pull a max here. But last couple games for Gausman, worried about that pitch count. Only went 53 pitches against Boston on October 2nd, 94, 89. So I'm hoping we will be closer to the 90 here if we do invest in him. But I guess you got to at least keep it in the back of your head that it is possible that maybe he's not the 100 pitch Gausman that we might have expectations for.
Any thought that maybe they were just, kind of keeping him keeping a few innings in the bank for like this spot and a deeper playoff run with those, or is it, was it not that? I don't remember exactly what happened in those starts.
See, on the second, I think I think the Blue Jays were in, but they weren't officially in. Okay. So it could have been a little bit of that. But in that game, he did have 4 hits allowed, no walks. So strikeouts were there. Doesn't look like he was in too much of a jam. They were just maybe going a little bit easier with the finger issue.
All right. Yeah. And look, I mean, none of this is to say that Kevin Gausman is not playable. And I think the idea of playing them both in the same lineup on DK does have some merit. You're getting great prices. You're getting a little bit of leverage on the Rays side. Not a ton of people are going to be approaching it that way. It's something that's definitely at least tournament viable, and it makes some sense. You get him at 1,100 more than Robbie Ray on the FanDuel slate at 8.5% ownership versus 1 and change ownership too. So it's just a very interesting spot from side to side in terms of the cost, the ability of both pitchers and where the field is. Very interesting tournament spot. What are we doing with Mariners bats? We saw a decent game out of these guys yesterday. We know Cal Raleigh's got power. You mentioned there's some strikeout in that bat. There's also a lot of pop in that bat, but there are some guys that, ton of swing and miss in the projected lineup, but they've been frisky. They've been fun to roster all year long. What are you doing with the Mariners at reasonable, like mid-level ownership on both sides?
Yeah. So when I looked at the slate, I was asking myself what teams could score a touchdown. And in my head, I was thinking the Phillies against a contact pitcher, the Blue Jays against a lefty. I think the Mariners are like that third team for me, because there is a blow up aspect to Gausman, not necessarily him at his best, but he's got a cut on his finger. He's got a 1.24 whip. But if they were able to gut through that and get into that Blue Jays bullpen, not that the bullpen is below average. I'm just saying probability wise, I think there's some aggressiveness here in this lineup and some power in this lineup that can cause some issues. So I like getting to the Mariners bats here. J-Rod, Ty France, Cal Raleigh is just insane right now. Just 2,600 on the FanDuel slate. And the guys like Mitch Haniger. So I do think there's a chance that 4 or 5 Mariners make some sense today. So I do like the Mariners bats. And it's going to be easy to land on the Blue Jays too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a solid spot, and it's all about the top 6 there. But if I'm stacking and making a lot of lineups with full stacks of Mariners, I can definitely roster if it's the same as the projected lineup. I can roster down through the Kelnick, Frazier, Frazier a little less so, but the Kelnick and Crawford part at the bottom of the lineup anyway. I can get to some of that. I think there's, Kelnick has not proven anything at the major league level, but there is something in that bat. I totally believe it. And if he's in the lineup at these prices and probably low ownership, I think he's somewhat interesting to get to in a run of Mariners stacks. But I just love the hard hit rate available in the top 6 hitters in the lineup, average hard hit rate of 44.4% and an average barrel rate of 11.6. Those are both high numbers. That includes Ty France in the 2 spot at 5.4% barrel and 36.3% hard hit. So those other guys around him are mashers. I want to be involved in that. What about the Blue Jays on the other side? You mentioned, a lot of upside bats, a lot of potential against Robbie Ray to light him up, but there's a lot of people going to them and they're fairly high priced for the bats that you want at the top of the lineup. What are you doing with Blue Jays here?
Yeah, ownership definitely is the pushback here on a 4-game slate where being unique is so valuable. I'm like, I want to be there, but this is a lot of ownership. 21% ownership, about 7% above the next highest owned stack. So I feel like the responsible way to do it for me is I'll get there a little bit. Maybe pair it with one low owned pitcher or a lower owned substack. Robbie Ray, and then even in a couple of Robbie Ray lineups, this is the ultimate two hitters against your pitcher spot. If Robbie Ray's on, you can still see a solo shot to Springer or Teoscar. Teoscar, by the way, the highest guy on my bomb detector today, and it's a very quiet bomb detector, and he's up there by himself. So he's certainly somebody that I would feature. But 20% feels like a lot, but I guess in a 4-game slate, it's not as much. We just need to be responsible with the shuffling the deck of cards with some lower owned guys to make it happen. But Blue Jays, I think, are the most likely team to drop a touchdown today. Them and the Phillies would be my coin flip.
Makes sense. Looks like the out top of my home run model as well. Mine flips it a little bit. I've got Vladdy, Springer, and then Teoscar, but they're all right there. And Matty Chapman is actually number 4. So that's seeing a lot of power on the Blue Jays side of things. Any concerns about Springer? He took one on the wrist last night, stayed in the game. Doesn't look like there's going to be any long-term concerns or any lingering pain, but that's the kind of thing that maybe you wake up a little bit sore. Any lingering concerns about that, or just wait and see what the lineup comes out as?
I mean, if he's in the lineup, I just got to go with it.
But I mean, knowing we got to get these in, we probably will have this lineup, but not necessarily, 4 hours out.
Yeah. I definitely
Springer got to assume he's in, right?
Yeah.
Especially since he stayed in the game.
Yeah. And then it's kind of weird. We have so many home teams facing elimination here. But that
only won, right? Only one home team won their game yesterday. Yeah.
That would, for me, make it quicker for those guys, those pitchers to get quick hooked if they're in a jam. And then Gossman, if he got hooked, let's say after 3 or 4, they could go to another starter. They can go to a Jose Barrios. They don't have to play by the rules of the regular season.
Sure.
Grab and we know Barrios has a chance to implode too. So another notch for me in the Mariners column.
Yeah, and that's something to remember with a lot of like St. Louis was talking about that with Jack Flaherty last night. He was available out of the pen. So yeah, a lot of interesting options out of the bullpen. And then you get some of these other spots where we're going to be dealing with somewhat fresh pens still because of the guys who went 7 last night. So there's also that factor with some of these teams. Anything else from this one, or should we read some business?
No, that's right.
Cool. We're halfway through. We've got a disappointing 28 likes. You guys are at half of Jared Kelnick's WRC plus of 55. We need to bring that number way, way up. Gundacker did not get up at 8 o'clock this morning to come here for 28 likes. It's pathetic, chat. Pathetic. Do want to say hi to everybody out there. I love that Sean V's take was that Max Scherzer did deserve to get booed. Sean V, yet another incorrect take. You just don't boo your own guys, man, especially a guy like Max. Yeah. Come on, not for something like that. But hey, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I also wanted to call out somebody named Sean V. wrongly told me Jordan would dong on 624 is in the chat. And he says, hey guys, it's been a while. Since last time I checked in, I got a job. Well, now I've met a woman. Things are pretty serious. I'm glad things are looking up since I lost everything betting on that Jordan dong. So thanks a lot, Sean V. What's up to Obi-Wan and everybody else hanging out in the chat? I haven't seen some of the other regulars. I'm sure they'll probably catch up in the next hour before lock. But hit that like, guys. We really appreciate it. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe. Business-wise, we got to talk about Odd Shopper real quick. There's 2 S's in the middle of that word for one thing. It's also linked at the top of Stokastic. It's our sister site. It's where you can find the best bets, period. Anywhere on the internet. It's going to tell you the best places to make your bets. If you've got a bet in mind that you want to make, if you don't have a bet in mind, you don't know what you're doing, it's going to help you find good bets to make and find where to make them. There's hundreds of bets featured daily. It gives you the edge you need betting player props or game lines across all sports. It's got expected win percentages and ROIs included, multiple projection methods now, which help you make the best bets available. So there's different approaches showing you different numbers based on different projection sets. It is killer. It features a parlay builder with an optimized parlay setup. It's got an arbitrage tool for risk-free guaranteed profit bets across different sports books. What are you waiting for? Click the link in the video description below to sign up for free with Odd Shopper and start making smarter bets now. They changed the ending, so I wanted to read it exactly like it's written. We'll talk about Odd Shopper Insider in a couple of minutes, but that's a new thing over at the site where you get access directly to our expert personalities in our Discord via Odd Shopper Premium Insider. It's just another thing to pile on this ridiculous amount of content that we've got to help people find winning bets. So Odd Shopper Insider, check them both out. Gun, let's jump back into the conversation here and talk about the San Diego Padres. Great game out of Yu Darvish last night. They're coming right back with Blake Snell, not a bad lefty to have on the mound in game 2 here, taking on the New York Metropolitans, down 1-0 at home. Jake DeGrom on the hill. 49.2% owned, probably over 50% owned when it's all said and done on DK at 10-4, 36%, probably over 40 on FanDuel at 11-3 when it's all said and done. What do we think of Blake Snell? What do we think of Jake DeGrom? What are you doing with pitching in this game?
Yeah, I think this one is the lowest run total of the slate.
Entire season, probably.
Yeah, Padres. Man, seeing this Padres lineup with a 2.4 run total. Like, this isn't a spring training lineup. This is their Tatis, boy less, but wow. So yeah, it's
also in the spring training pitcher on the other side.
Right? Yeah.
Jake DeGrom not going to be bagging groceries next week.
Tell the Braves that. No, I think because of that, when you open the book on this game, you're more interested in pitching than not. But again, DraftKings, they're really dangling some low price pitchers at you today to make you think about it. And I guess in a way, I appreciate that, right? If every pitcher was 10K, it would just all be playing DeGrom. So yeah, that's good. So yeah, I think 7,900 on Blake Snell is something that we have to consider. We're giving Blake Snell a 10.6, Blake Snell a 24% chance of being the top 2 pitcher on DraftKings. Efficient ownership, about 27%. So appropriately owned. The Mets lineup kind of half and half in terms of strikeout potential and not. Cold weather up there, New York, wind blowing left to right. So it's going to be more pitcher friendly. But we kind of thought that last night. So I think Blake Snell is one of those guys we know can have those implosion games where he's just not finding the strike zone. Mm-hmm. High pressure game, high pressure situation. But to his credit, it's not a must win. I would really be looking at his walk rate to righties. Aggregate the last year, probably 11%. This year, just under 10%. Some patient righties for the Mets that he's got to go up against. So yeah, I think the ownership's sufficient on Blake Snell. So I'm gonna get there a little bit, but I kind of like these other cheaper pitchers better because of the lower ownership, like the Robbie Rays and whatnot. Yep. So I don't think his implosion chances are the same as the Robbie Ray. But the ownership is so much lower that I just want to play the ownership game there.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm exactly with you, particularly on FanDuel, where I'm looking at 16% on Blake Snell. And their pitchers, I've got them in roughly the same bag. Like, I think I agree that Robbie Ray's got the worst matchup by minimal degrees, but these are similar pitchers, both guys with high walk rates, both guys who allow a little bit of contact. Snell was good in terms of the home run rate, but he gives up a good amount of premium hard hit, both this year and last year. And he does struggle with that walk rate. He's got an excellent strikeout rate when he's on, but he can have his clunker games. I think if I'm rostering a pitcher at that level at similar pricing, and I don't, I'm picking one that I don't fully trust in not a great matchup, I'll just take that ownership discount. I'll take a 15-1 ownership discount any day of the week. So yeah, I think I prefer the Ray spot. And Snell comes up negatively leveraged on FanDuel, slightly less negative on the DK slate. I just prefer him on DK at that 79 price. I do agree there. I think the ownership's probably about right. But if I'm undercutting, I think this might be one of my undercut candidates, across the entire board. Not to bury the lead entirely on the slate. You mentioned if they weren't playing games with those DK prices, I think, he would be ridiculously more popular. But Jake DeGrom is still going to be pulling quite a bit of ownership. Obviously deserved. I mean, even against a lineup like this, over 64 and a third, 42.7% strikeout rate and a 1.54 xFIP. You cannot argue with those numbers. So what do we do with Jake DeGrom here? Are you going like around the field? You undercutting? What are you doing?
So I think if we choose to undercut guys like Blake Snell in the interest of grabbing some lower owned guys like Robbie Ray, we can still match the field on DeGrom. I think DeGrom's just one of those literal best pitchers on the planet that I always tend to be willing to take negative leverage when he's on the bump. You usually don't have to pay a 50% tax on it to be there. But hey, there's 8 teams, 4 games. I think today I'm willing to be there on him. And then the Geico insurance play of the day, San Diego Padres coming in at 4.7% ownership share. So what's a 6% run back in my 150 or whatever in case all hell broke loose for some insurance.
Yeah, that definitely seems worth doing. Seems like an easy tournament spot to pick. And we just saw them do it to Max Scherzer yesterday, right? And they're coming back at 1% owned on FanDuel. Everybody except for Juan Soto, who's 10% owned. Similar story on DK, everybody in the 3s and 4s. What are we doing, people? Come on. It's a tournament day. We got to get that ownership up a little bit. I know it's Jake DeGrom, but they should be a little bit more popular than that on a 4-game slate, I think. So that's a spot I'm interested in. I'm not saying it's going to succeed. I'm not saying that they're going to get to Jake DeGrom. Odds are he comes out and shuts them down completely for 6 innings, finds 10, 12 strikeouts. But I want to be there in tournaments in the event that he does not. What about the New York Mets on the other side going up against Snell? Drawing more popularity, similarly good pitcher on the other side. We mentioned there are some warts. Sometimes you can get to him. What bats do you like going to from the Mets, and are you going to like full stacks of Mets here?
The bats that stick out the most, Marte, because it is a must-win game. He's one of those guys I believe if he gets on, draws a walk, he's likely going to have the green light to run. Probably the same with Frankie Lindor. Pete Alonso obviously has big man power. And then one of my favorite Mets to play all year against lefties, Eduardo Escobar, 251 ISO last 2 years against lefties. He's got a 4+ rating on my bomb detector, and that's one of 4 people on this entire slate for me that has that magic number. So, and that's been the Eduardo Escobar story all year, and he's always hidden in the bottom of the lineup. So those are names that stick out for me. And then the chip in a chair, Francisco Alvarez, he cracks that lineup at the bottom of the order. 2K on FanDuel, 2,700 on DK. Certainly has a lot of power in his bat. And we've finally seen that in the last week. So there are 4 or 5 Mets I can get to here. And this is must-win territory. So I think the stolen base might come into play a little bit more. And then what kind of jam does Jacob deGrom have to be in the first 5 innings for Showalter to go get him? Because that would be the hardest decision on the planet for me.
Right. That's the question. Like, where is your hook on DeGrom? Or is it, he gives up 2 early ones and then he's got 2 runners on and like the 4th with no outs. Like, do you hook him? He's at 60 some odd pitches. Like, that's so difficult. They would have to, I think if he gets in any kind of trouble and it looks like he's going to be in trouble, I think Bassett's got to get fired up in the pen probably, right? Like, you got to go to somebody like that if you need, especially if you need a handful of innings. I know they've got a couple guys in the pen that can give you multiple innings, but I think you got to make that kind of a handoff if it's early. Otherwise, it's going to be a quick hooking into the pen if it's a little later. What do you think, it being a must win, let's say the Mets offense does their usual Jake DeGrom act and doesn't put up any early runs for him. How deep do you think they let him go, assuming all's going well? Are we going to see a complete game? Are we going to see 8 innings and hand it off to the closer? What are we thinking in terms of the depth they would allow him to go?
Yeah, I think if he's cruising, it's his ball game until it's not. And that'll save you everything you need for game 3. Bassett, whatever the bridge could be from Bassett to Edwin Diaz, make it happen. I think DeGrom has the least that he wants, even though he doesn't exceeded 86 pitches his last 2 outings. I still think this is must-win territory. Literally, what are you saving him for at this point? So let him ride.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's going to have as much leash, like you said, as he wants. He's the top projected guy by a decent amount in my model. He's the top of our board at the site. There's really nothing not to like about Jake DeGrom. I mean, you're talking about even on DK, technically positive leverage. I'd call it more efficient ownership. It's a 0.2 leverage amount, 49.2% owned, 49.4% probable would be a top 2 starter, but that's pretty good. I agree. It's just a spot you can kind of lock in and not worry about the leverage, win it elsewhere. On FanDuel, he comes up 14 at a -14 leverage score, and there are some juicy spots, and you are dealing with the one pitcher site. So maybe it makes a little sense to approach it a little bit more gingerly, maybe a slight undercut on the FanDuel slate, but I don't think you even need to get that aggressive about it. And honestly, if I came up 40% and the field was 40%, I would be okay with it. I wouldn't really have any issues. I agree on the Escobar take too. I think you've been consistently the biggest Eduardo Escobar fan on these channels all year long, but I'm there with you. I think that's a bat I'm interested in. And yeah, Francisco Alvarez, I expect him to be in the lineup. Like, he's not on this roster for no reason. Like, they put him on the roster. I think they're going to put him in the lineup. So makes total sense to consider him, especially where you need a catcher on the DK slate. 2,700 dead minimum price at 2,000 on FanDuel. I can sign up for that bat as well. Anything else from this one, or should we jump on over to the last one? We got about 10 minutes left.
No, we're good.
All right. We will talk Phillies Cardinals in half a sec, but let me talk to you guys real quick about Odd Shopper Insider. I mentioned it a minute ago. Odd Shopper, our sister site, the one with all the great bets, the great odds. We've also got some experts over there making some killer picks, and they hang out in our Discord all the time. So you can get access to expert sports betting picks straight from your favorite Odd Shopper personalities with Odd Shopper Premium Insider. If you click below, there's a link down there somewhere. If you click below, browse through the packages from 6 experts, you can find that each one has a coupon code for your first week to be completely free. So each guy has an individual coupon code, and I'm sure we're tracking them. There's probably a big prize at the end or something like that, or maybe not. I might just be making that up, but hey, there's a little incentive. I might be telling the truth. Go win your favorite expert a prize. With each package, you'll get to access to the Insider subscriber channel within the Stokastic Discord, as well as our other Odd Shopper betting channels that are available in Discord. There's no cost to you to give this a shot for a week. So click below, find your favorite expert, use his promo code or her promo code. Don't really know who's over there, and get started now. It's a great spot. You guys got to go check it out. Check out Odd Shopper. Check out everything that comes with it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're jumping into our last game here. See if anybody's mentioning anything that they want in chat. Eric Trani says he should be cheap. He hasn't had an extra base hit in 6 weeks. I'm not sure he's talking about. Oh, Nicky Castellanos, only 3,600 on DK. Yeah, that's an interesting call out. Steve Cummings says he's a singles hitter. Not a lot going on in chat, but what's up, everybody? Hit that like and subscribe. We're at 49. We need it. I mean, geez, you can't get it over 50. There's 214 of you out there. I know we started early, but there's 50. All right, now we can go to the next game. Gun, we got Aaron Nola, ace caliber pitcher, Cy Young caliber pitcher, phenomenal year, over 205 innings this year, coming up with some ownership against the Cards here, but I think it's fair. I think he's at a fair price. Miles Mikolas on the other side, kind of your contact-based type pitcher, but an effective real-life pitcher, turned in 202 and a third quality innings with a 19% strikeout rate and a 3.80 xFIP. What are we doing with Aaron Nola, the better of these two pitchers? And then what are you doing with Miles Mikolas at a cheap price on DK?
So Mikolas is probably the pitcher I have the least interest on the slate, and that includes, the 5,600 glass now. I just he's not a strikeout guy for me. He's an inning eater, and this is the playoffs where it's all strikeout guys except him. So at his 15% ownership, man, that's I don't think I'll probably have none of that. I'll just give that back to the field and hope that 15% pays off elsewhere. So that's one. Aaron Nola is the more intriguing option because he has a real chance to be the top scorer on the slate if Jacob deGrom is average. It is not the best matchup for strikeouts, but it's a good park. And Aaron Nola is just different. 29% K rate on the season, a 12.6% swing and strike rate, a sub-1 whip. He doesn't waste a lot of pitches, 2.74 expected ERA. I mean, these are just absolutely elite metrics. So he has to be the guy that's second in the rankings. And unlike, several of these other guys that have had some issues down the stretch with finger injuries and suspect pitch counts, Nola's gotten you 6+ innings in 4 games straight. So he's cruising. He's stretched out and he's ready to go. And this is this might be that get it to the closer, let's go home game and get ready for the NLDS. So I like Nola quite a bit. Him and DeGrom obviously project the best, so they're going to have the highest ownership. But at 30% ownership on a 4-game slate, I'm willing to be above that and eat some negative leverage and maybe just take the 15% of the field that Michaelis had and just add that to Nola.
Yeah, I think that could make some sense. I definitely have no interest in Michaelis at 9,200 on FanDuel. Maybe a couple of shares. He's 4% owned. So maybe I get away with it. Maybe I get the quality start bonus. So maybe it's a little bit interesting at that ownership, but I just hate the price by comparison to some of these other strikeout upside pitchers. Like it's just so much easier to click other names, but maybe a couple shares in tournaments, but I'm not excited about that spot. I do want to be in the Aaron Nola business. Agree with everything you said there. I all season long have not liked tangling with this Cardinals lineup, but just on pure talent, on pure upside, I do think that he's just right there. He's the next name after DeGrom. So I'll have plenty of Nola, probably right around the field's number on FanDuel. And I agree with, being around the field on the DK slate. Bats in this one. Any Phillies bats for you? I know one person behind the scenes here, behind the virtual glass, who would be very interested in the Phillies putting up a big number early and running off to a comfy lead. He's nodding his head. Producer Mike Lawrence, producer Mike Stokastic Lawrence in the background there. He's in the chat as well. Wished everybody a happy Aaron Nola day, but I'm sure he'd like to see some runs in addition to some great pitching. So what are we doing with Phillies bats here?
Yeah, they're one of my favorite teams to stack because Michaelis isn't a strikeout guy. So I don't say guarantee, but they're the most likely to put batted balls in play. And if you're going to dare 19% barrel rate Kyle Schwarber to put the ball in play, I'm going to have some Kyle Schwarber. Same with, Hoskins, Harper, we're talking 13-50% barrel rates. That's not normal. Like that's crazy. So I'm absolutely enamored with the Phillies here. Probably going to be one of my top 2 owned stacks on the slate. Looking at our projected ownership on DraftKings, Phillies are coming in 3rd in ownership. A little bit efficient, but some positive leverage to be had with their top stack score. And then looking at FanDuel, pretty similar, coming in 2nd in ownership, but efficiently owned. So and on FanDuel, it's easier to get a little bit different since 4 is the cap instead of 5. So I like the Phillies quite a bit. And then we've talked about the game theory behind being in an elimination situation. If Michaelis gets beat up early, they're probably going to quick hook him. You mentioned they were thinking about Jack Flaherty yesterday. Well, that's probably the plan here then. And if that happens, Flaherty's pushing a 5 expected ERA so far this season with a 1.61 whip. So the party can keep going, and it might be Albert Pujols' last game.
That's true. Yeah. Yep. Definitely going to be a lot of sad folks in St. Louis if it goes that route. And it'll be sad to see those guys depart the game, Yachty and Pujols and Waino if he leaves. We were talking before the show about the last time the Phillies were in the playoffs was like 15, 16 years ago. And all 3 of those guys played against the Phillies because they were on this Cardinals team then. Just amazing careers for all 3 dudes. But yeah, could be the last one in St. Louis. I'm kind of hoping not. Sorry, Mikey. I do like this. I do like this Cardinals team and all 3 of those guys. But these Phils have been fun. DFS wise, I'm totally with you. I want to get on board with this Phillies team. I think for all the contact that's available, they're going under own. There's some attention on the top end, but probably a little bit too little. And then it tapers off toward the bottom with some good hitters down there that I like getting to. The Nick Castellanoses of the world at price. I know he hasn't had a great season, but at 36 on DK, like somebody in chat mentioned before, I can get on board with that. And he's 2,300 on FanDuel. He's pulling 20% ownership, which is pushing up the team ownership. But at that price, I can include Nick Castellanos and hope that he remembers who he is. And then the bottom of the lineup, Brandon Marsh, Gene Segura, Bryson Stott, like these are decent hitters. So I can get into basically 1 through 9 in the Phillies and help, differentiate some of those combos. Cardinals on the other side, not getting very much attention. They're going up against Aaron Nola. They do have their backs against the wall. There are some excellent premium hitters. We saw Albert Pujols hitting 2nd yesterday at a cheap price against a righty, might be back there again today. We know Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. What are we doing with the cards here? Because they are low owned, and it's been on one of those teams where low owned cards equals roster them all year long for us. Is that the case today?
Yeah. Cardinals actually, I think we're getting one of the better positive leverage scores in our top stacks tool, 12% chance to win the top 2 or top stack with just 5.6% ownership. So that's close enough ownership that even if you're invested in Nola, you could still give up some portfolio, have an insurance policy, and also, kind of supports that open 1 or 2 bats against your pitcher idea we were playing with. So I'm definitely on board with that. And then if you're able to get Nola out, the Phillies are less likely to play do or die baseball and put another starter out there, and they're probably tapped to the bullpen. Yesterday they went to Alvarado, Zach Eflin, David Robertson. Maybe Alvarado and Robertson will probably be available again today, but it's not an elite bullpen. That if the
you put that more politely than I was gonna.
Oh, I don't want Mike to like zoom in on my nose hairs or
just
something.
all of a sudden you're done from the
show. So there's a chance, like if Nola just doesn't have it, if a pitcher doesn't have it, it's possible in the playoffs. You saw yesterday that this bullpen is not going to be a better pitcher than Aaron Nola. So Cardinals team is way too talented for 5% ownership on a 4-game slate.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's the case, and I'll easily be over the field on cards. I can tell you that right now, especially on FanDuel with some of these guys, 1%, 5%, 3%. Like, I'm just going to get to this team. I know how they come up in my model. Anything else to say about the slate overall? We're up against the wall in terms of jumping off the air and handing off to whatever's up next. Ryan Belisek asks, do we like McKenzie today? Say again.
College football.
College football is up next. College football live before lockup next. So we're going to jump off in just a minute. Ryan Belisek asked if we like Tristan McKenzie today. Ryan, we both do, but we kind of like all these pitchers, and you can scroll back to the beginning of the show and start it over because lock isn't for another hour and change. So good luck to everybody. Gun, anything to wrap up? Favorite stack, favorite pitcher, and a home run call, maybe?
I guess I'll stick with the Teoscar. My favorite stack's the Phillies. Jacob DeGrom.
Yeah, easy one. Favorite non-DeGrom? Favorite non-DeGrom, non-Nola?
Here's really 3 guys. Pick one. I guess McKenzie.
All right. So there's the answer for the dude in chat. That makes it interesting. And then you going Teoscar for that home run call?
Either him or I'll go Harper, and it's gonna be so weird. Is Michael K calling that game too? Because I heard Michael K's Juan Yepez home run calling. I felt like I got cheated on. It hurt.
It was weird. It's weird hearing K call different teams. I did like how he worked in the Yankees approximately 37 times in just the conversations with his color guy. It's like, Mike, come on, I'm not doing that game. I'll go with the old man. I'll go with Albert Pujols. He's coming up with a decent number, and it's it's a weird one. We wouldn't necessarily think in that matchup that he's going to be drawing a good home run mark, but that's where I'll go. Gun, tell the people where they can find you.
Twitter, YouTube /Gundacker.
Excellent. That's the place. Stick around, gang. We've got college football live before lock coming up at 11 o'clock right after this with Ben and Makajeski. And then 1 to 2, we've got the NFL strategy show, Greg, Neal, and Rebecca on that one. So make sure you're sticking around, checking all the football content out. We really appreciate it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and we will see you later on. Good luck today.